All right, I think we've got it here. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you making time for this, making this a priority. We do believe it is incredibly important. One of the things we talked about in our success workshop, you'll recall, is ensuring that we have the right measurement, reporting, signals in place to really understand whether what we're doing is having any impact. And also, in addition to things like media performance indicators or sales reporting, to also understand how effectively our efforts are contributing to investing in future demand as well. So at the brand level, how healthy is our brand throughout the funnel? How does that compare with the competition? What can we gain from that in order to continue optimizing and getting stronger over time? So with your approval, we engaged a preferred partner of ours called Tracksuit. They are absolutely terrific in the brand health tracking space. And what's really exciting about it is it's web-based. It is essentially a real-time dashboard. So Christopher's talked to you a little bit about it, but we have the first month of results in now. So sort of a baseline. I think it started in June.
Yeah.
To really understand what things looked like even, pre-transition, so that we have that baseline in place and we're able to then track over time how it starts to chart and what that trajectory looks like. So I think I'm just going to hand it over to Dave. We can have him pull up the interface on his screen, and we just want to start taking you through it, getting you familiar with the interface, talking about what we're seeing. And this is something that you should have access to as well. So we'll reach out afterwards. We put together some slides that kind of summarize all of this. And then if anybody would like access to it, we'll make sure we get you set up. So at any point, you're welcome to log in and see how things are looking as well.
Yeah, so hope everyone can see the screen. I'll kind of just walk you through this live. As Zach said, we will figure out how many of you can get logins to this, so you can have access to this if you want to. This is using what's called continuous brand tracking, which means they started tracking in June. They tracked all through the month of June. They tracked all through the month of July. They start tracking all through August and continuing. And it just means that once July's data is posted, we can now look at both June data, and we can look at how it's different from July data, and we can start looking at it quarterly. And there are all sorts of things we can do with this interface, just because, as you see it right in front of you, it's so incredibly slick. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through this. And as I walk through it, I'll kind of talk to you a little bit about both how the template and the interface works, but also kind of what we're seeing in the June data, because there are a couple of things here in particular we really want to make sure that you see. So just a really quick orientation. First of all, how do people get in the research in the first place? The question that is asked that determines whether people qualify for the research or don't qualify is this: in the past 3 years, have you purchased light duty equipment for land, farm, construction, or property maintenance? Note this includes compact and subcompact tractors, UTVs, skid steers, and similar equipment used for mowing, hauling, digging, grading, or small-scale farming. So people either say yes, and they qualify, or they say no, but I'm open to or likely to buy these things in the future, and they qualify, or they say no, and they're kicked out. So what that tells us is that means out of all the people they throw this kind of cast this net out to, 23% of people qualify for the research, having answered yes to either the first or the second of those two questions. So that means they're in the research. Now, before we look at the data, I know you're looking at it already, I just want to give you a sense of just the structure of this. For those of you who are AI lovers, you will love this, which is the coach's notes, which is, particularly once we get into this, is their AI-driven interpretation of the results with some suggestions about what the data means and what you can do about it. And it gives you a sense of the size of the market, how competitors are doing. So it's their AI-generated sense of what this data means and what you can do with it. It is in beta, as you see at the top. It'll continue to get better, but it is a way for us to have their input on what the data means. Cool stuff. Okay, next is the funnel. And this is where the data starts to get interesting because it allows us to now look at, for those of you who haven't seen this idea of a brand or a purchase funnel before, it's a snapshot of the health of the brand all the way from, do people know you exist? Would they consider you? Have they done research to learn more about you? Have they bought from you in the past? And do they prefer you? And you can look at the strength of your brand all the way from what we call the top of this funnel, all the way to the bottom, which is, I would prefer you if I were going to buy. Now, this will be tracked over time. We don't, because it's only 1 month. We still have a single snapshot here. Frankly, the single snapshot is not that interesting, but imagine being months and quarters from now where campaigns have been launched and things have been done, and we can start to match up the data with things that are happening in the marketplace, plot it all out, and it will start to become more useful. In the meantime, we can do things like this. We take a look at brand awareness and we say, okay, well, we see that we have 12%. How does that compare with the competition? And you can look at the extent to which your competitors have similar awareness. And if you ever want to know exactly how the question is asked, it's right here at the very bottom. So for example, here, which of the following light duty equipment brands have you heard of? So we give people a list, they simply say yes or no. It's that simple. Have they heard of you? Have they not heard of you? You can see where your brand stands relative to your competition. And again, this will all be tracked over time. So you see John Deere is the dominant player in the category. You know that. Bobcat is really strong. Kubota has about 3 times the awareness that you have, and you can see the other brands in the category and see where you are. And then we can minimize this. And then we can look at all of these in the exact same way. So you look at brand consideration. So again, I'll skim down and show you the question. Which brands of light duty equipment would you consider buying? You look at it and say, okay, where do we stand? You're at 7%, roughly about the same as Massey Ferguson and Mahindra, ahead of TYM and LS Tractor. You can see where John Deere, Bobcat, Kubota are, et cetera. So you can have a feel for, again, where your brand is relative to all of the others. And then I can keep going as the next one question is investigation. Have you, here we go. Have you looked into any of these light duty equipment brands before? In other words, have you done any research to consider purchasing these brands, yes or no? And you can look at all of this and you can say, well, more than half of people have looked into John Deere. Less than a third have looked into Bobcat. 1 out of 5 have looked into Kubota, et cetera. You can see where your brand falls relative to the others. And again, this is just a single snapshot. It's not that interesting, but again, imagine that we are months and quarters.
David, I'm sorry for interrupting because I have audio issue in the
do.
beginning. Sorry, I have a little bit audio issue in the beginning. So I did not quite hear who is audience, who is survey was participating. Sorry, I missed that part.
Yeah, no trouble at all. It's right here, Ryan. So I'll click on it and you can see this. It's people who answer this question. In the past 3 years, if you purchased light duty equipment for land, farm construction, or property maintenance, notice this includes compact and subcompact tractors, UTVs, skid steers, and similar equipment used for mowing, hauling, digging, grading, or small scale farming. They either say yes or they say no, but I'm open to or expect to buy in the near future. So that's who is included in the research.
Okay.
So far about 1,600 people that have said yes or no, but I would like to soon.
Okay.
Okay.
So
And on a
amazing.
just
And the data will get richer and more informative as more people qualify for those answers, and we can track it over time.
okay.
Thank you.
So you get the idea. Sorry, go ahead.
Is there any way to pull historical data like pre-2024 to see where our rankings were?
Sadly, we do not have the ability to pull historical data because we just started working with them in June. Therefore, they have not been tracking this category, so they don't have any historical data. The good news is we start building our own historical data quickly because, July's already done, so we have 2 months now, and then we're going to start building data pretty fast. Sadly, we can't go back.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one, and I'll just go through these fairly quickly just so you can see where the data is and kind of how the data works. So this next one is, which of the following light duty equipment brands have you bought in the past? And you look at your brand, you're a relatively new brand. We wouldn't expect this to be super high. This is something obviously we want to see tracked and built over time. 43% of the people we talked to have bought John Deere in the past. That's an awful lot of folks. So you start to see kind of where your brand falls versus the competition. And as we track this, we'll see movement, not just in your brand, but all of the competitive brands will have a sense of what everyone else is doing. And then this last measure, which is obviously a really important one, is preference, which the way that question is asked, and these are simple questions, which is your preferred brand of light duty equipment? And you see how incredibly dominant John Deere is. Right, so you can see that where Bobcat falls and all the other competitors at 2%, clearly the brand has work to do to become a preferred provider, but that's a really deep level of brand loyalty. The starting point is they even need to know you exist. They need to be open to considering you, and then they need to do a little bit of research, and then it kind of goes from there. So we'll sort of see how all of this falls as time moves on. Okay, so that's the kind of quick overview of the data, and you'll see up here, when we look at this data, we're going to be able to start to look at it over time, go at the last 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. And this is where once we build more sample size, more people have been interviewed, it's going to start to get really interesting because we can start to break the data down by age or gender or region of the country, or whether the residence is rural or not, their household income. And this last one I want to show you, because this is a custom question that we developed with you, so you can look at the data based on the nature of the kind of work that's being done. So we'll be able to look at the data and say, okay, let's just look at the data for people who are doing light construction work, or land or lawn maintenance, or ranching or farming, or ranching and farming. And so we'll be able to break the data down in ways that will be really interesting and useful for you, particularly as you move into things like construction. We'll be able to watch the data for light construction to see how it's moving as you move more strongly into that category. Okay, so that's how the data will be broken down in the future once we have a larger sample size and the ability to do more interesting work. Okay, so this next one looks at conversion, and conversion is the ratio or the percentage of people who move from one category to the next. In other words, for every person who's aware of you, every 100 people who are aware of you, what percentage of them then move on to being willing to consider you. And we can do these ratios or conversions for all the competitors of all of these measures. For the moment, we're just showing you awareness to consideration and to preference, but all of that can be filled in. The reason why you're seeing dashed lines for KIOTI and for some others is because we don't have the sample size yet to have really robust data, but actually we have another month or two. All of that's going to solidify, and that data will be based on larger sample sizes, and those lines will go from dashed lines to solid lines. So just to go down the page and show you all of what's here. So it's all of the brands and all of their data with the conversion worked into it. And again, same thing, we'll be able to look at it by time frame, by all of those same demographics I showed you before. And we can do this where we can pull brands in and out. So we can just focus on a particular brand, or we can look at all of them. So there's all of that work that can be done to see how well we're converting people from awareness to consideration and so on, right? A strong brand is really good at conversion. A weaker brand struggles with conversion. So you want to be able to look over time as people have greater awareness of you, a deeper understanding of you, deeper appreciation of who it is and what you do. We're looking for all that data to become more robust. Okay.
So question is,
Yeah.
I'm quite not clear. What do you mean by conversion?
Sure. What it does is it measures the percent of people who are aware of the brand who would say, yes, I would consider that brand. So in your case, 58% of the people who are aware of your brand would say, yes, I would consider you. So that means that the rest of those people, they know you exist, but they're not willing to consider you. So what your goal is over time is to make that number go up, so that the percentage of people who are aware of you not just know you exist, but they understand you and they appreciate you. So that when the time comes to make a purchase, they would say, yes, I would consider you. Okay. So then you can look at all of those conversions as well from, yeah, I'd be willing to consider you, but I haven't done any research yet. Well, why not? Why have a larger percentage of people who are willing to consider you not done research? Let's get that number higher. And then have they bought you in the past? Let's get that number higher. And what you really then want is to have brand preference, where people say, not only do I know you exist, and not only am I willing to consider you, and I've investigated you, and I bought you, you're my favorite brand, and I want to tell everyone I know about you. So it's sort of like gradations of loyalty and commitment to your brand, and you can measure the conversion at each stage.
Yeah. So not conversion in terms of a product purchase, but really you want as little drop off from one level of the funnel to the next to illustrate how well you are at keeping someone engaged all the way through purchase and preference. Does that make sense?
Excellent.
Yeah, so that you get a nice visualization of kind of the health of your brand through the shape of the funnel.
Okay, so then we move. Sorry, is that clear, Ryan? You're nodding. Got it. Okay, so
Yes.
do exactly what Ryan is doing. Ask questions at any point through this. I'm throwing a lot at you, and I want to make sure that you understand what this is and how it can be used. So this brand imagery question is really interesting, and I want to show you where'd the question go.
It's the little arrow next to how the brand is perceived.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, thank you. It's a really simple question. Thinking about light duty farm equipment, what comes to mind when you think about such and such a brand? And it's an open text field. People type in whatever they want. So there's no control over the options. It's just an open field. They type in whatever they want. And then what it allows us to then do is to look at the perceptions that people have of your brand. And for the moment, ignore Bobcat and just look at your brand. So over time, as we do more advertising, put more imagery out there, do more public relations, hold events, whatever it is, we start putting perceptions in people's heads of the brand. So then what we're looking at is what are they getting out of the messaging? What ways do they perceive the brand? And the dark circles represent themes that are common with competitors. The light circles represent things that are unique to your brand. And then what we're then able to do is we go over here and we can change the competitive brand. So I'm going to change it to a brand that's very different from Bobcat, and just watch what happens on the left-hand side of the screen when I type a different brand. Right? So the perceptions themselves don't change, but which ones are common and which ones are unique to your brand change based on whichever brand you're comparing to. So it allows us to go in here and put any brand we want, and we can look at the perceptions. The more things that are on the screen, the more perceptions people have. I'll show you an example of a brand where people don't know very much, and so they don't type very much. It's pretty much a blank slate. They got nothing to say. So there's not a lot there. So over time, we would want the robustness of the content under your brand to increase, and the specificity of it around themes and messages that we want them to hold in their head to increase. So it's a clear way for us to understand what do people have in their brains about your brand. Okay, so again, and then we can track this over time, which will be really interesting to see, again, as advertising and messaging progresses, how it changes. This next one is really interesting because this is brand perceptions, both in terms of how your brand is perceived and what it is that people believe that you do. Like, what do they know about you that you're able to do? We call them category entry points. Another way to think about it is when will they think of you when it comes to certain kinds of activities? So there are 2 brand perceptions here and 6 category entry points. And what this allows you to do is to see where you stand versus your competition on each one of these. So offers excellent performance for the price. You sit kind of middle to the low end of that. It's not too bad. And what you can do is, if you want to see where any competitor is, you just go in here and click on it and you see exactly where they are. So you can see how each of these brands is perceived, relative to your brand, right? So it's sense of like, okay, well, how are we doing compared to other companies? Okay, I got to unclick all this now.
I think it's good to click the competitor average.
Yes.
As you're going through as well.
Yeah.
Just to kind of see relative to the.
Yeah, and the other thing is just like, okay, how are we doing compared to the average? So I click that. Not behaving. I don't know.
Oh, it's because it's hiding behind that on your screen.
Hold on. There we go. So for all of these measures, you can see where you stand relative to the competition. You look at it and say, well, we're almost right at the average point for offering excellent performance for the price. That's pretty good. So now we're going to, and we can down, and these are all the things, again, we call them category entry points. Is your brand known for doing this kind of work? So are you known for mowing acreage or working a small farm or ranch? Actually, yes, you have pretty good awareness there as completing those kinds of tasks. Moving down is for landscaping work like mowing, design, or snow removal. Once again, you're pretty well associated there. But then you drop down and you think, interesting. The brand is not known well at all for grading or digging trenches or post holes relative to other brands. In fact, you're quite low on that one. And then we have additional tasks, which is for construction tasks like demolition, grading, digging, cleanup, somewhat well-known, but not less well-known. That makes perfect sense. You're relatively new in that category. We would expect those numbers to be somewhat low. Is for clearing land or moving soil, gravel, or debris. Again, you're doing okay, kind of a little bit toward the lower end of the scale there. Is for agricultural work like barn cleanup, tilling, or seeding, reasonably good, kind of in the middle. You would like to be better, but it's not bad. So you can start to see this idea we can track through time. Are people starting to associate your brand with doing these kinds of work so that when the time comes to do that kind of work and they go looking for a potential product to buy, they consider you? Right? You can see how important that is. You want people to think of you when they're thinking of the kinds of work that they need to do with the products they're about to buy. Now, here's one that we really need to take note of. This is the brand attribute. Is a brand I trust to be durable over long-term usage? And your brand scores quite poorly on this. So it helps us understand, this is probably an upsetting number for you to see, but it helps you understand there's a job to be done here. There's communication to be done. There's brand perceptions and understanding that need to be improved and worked on. If there's an attribute you really need to work on in your communication, that gives you an answer of what's critically important. To be perceived as a brand that is durable over long-term uses is definitely something that needs to improve. Okay. So again, you're starting to, and imagine we're going to see all of this as it tracks through time. You can look at it relative to your competitors. You're going to put messaging out in the marketplace. You're going to be spending money on advertising and media, and we'll be looking to see how all of these really important attributes evolve. This last one is not very interesting yet because it simply doesn't have the sample size. What it will be when in time is this part right here that I'm highlighting. The category will in time be your brand. So we'll be able to look at this and say, okay, how does your customer profile, the people who are aware of your brand, compare to the overall category average in terms of gender or age or census division or ethnicity or household income or household status? So you can see in particular for the media folks who want to have an understanding of who the customer is and who to reach using media, that this is particularly useful. And then the other half of that is the media consumption. It takes a second to load. Here we go. Where we would look at an audience. And remember, we can break this audience down any way we want by age, gender, census division, residence, household income, and again, the type of work. And this will be particularly useful of light construction, for example. We can click light construction and look at the media habits. And what you're seeing on this slide is the media that people consume. So the question is fairly simple. Right up here is, we asked consumers in the past month, which of the following media channels have you used, read, seen, or listened to? And so these people just list or note the media channels that they've seen over the past month. So it's really helpful from a perspective of media planning. Okay, Christopher, you know these guys well. Anything that I've missed, anything that you would want to add?
No, I mean, and you've stressed the point quite well a few times. This starts to get really interesting when we're tracking over time, right? So like in another 2 months, so we'll have 3 months worth of data. Then you can start to look at it quarterly, etc. When we start to see significant shifts in these things, we then have to ask the question, what can we ascribe the change to, right? What are we doing or not doing? What are our competitors doing or not doing that allowed for this, essentially the memory structure to shift? And that helps us better understand how the market is responding, then to our efforts. We're never making choices in a vacuum. The market's always moving, with their own marketing activities. But yeah, and each one of these things that Dave has clicked through, so it's to watch this over time, so we're not flying blind. We actually see what we're able to do, and if there's particular weaknesses or opportunities that we see on our own imagery or our category entry points relative to our competitors, we can start to fortify those and know the kinds of messages we need to be linking to more consistently over time to move the market in our favor, essentially, which takes time. But then you also have to kind of know what to focus on, as opposed to trying to focus on everything all at once. So it allows us to focus our resources. But yeah, it's all about brand over time, sales overnight, and that's how we get there.
So there are two purposes of this call. One is to say, hey, we have this dashboard, this template, this new capability. Here's how it works. Here's what you can do with it. Here's how you can use it. The other is to say, hey, we're seeing the first month's data. What are we seeing? Two really critical points come out of the first month's data. One, it is critically important to build overall awareness of the Coyote brand. And two, it's critically important to shift brand perceptions on that ability to do quality work and being durable over the long haul. So if we're to say, okay, only the first months of data, it's somewhat limited in its use, there are two findings that come out as being critically important: building brand awareness, fixing the perception of being durable over the long haul. So I just want to make sure you're seeing the relevance of the data for the work that you're doing, not just the template itself and what it can do.
And hopefully that doesn't sound like, new information. I think if anything, that validates the conversations we've been having, right? The need to better balance efforts between brand and performance, and then even the brief that we had synced up on, and where I think we believe the new campaign would lead us is really built around the product being one that can withstand a lot. It can take a beating, and it can last as well. So that idea of durability is very much baked into, I think, a lot of the vocabulary and messaging of where the brand is headed from here.
So question, so can we, like, I see the demographics here, right? Can you divide into different regions, Northwest, Southwest?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what that is for?
Yeah, I'll show you. This is what we will be able to do. At the current moment, Ryan, there's not sufficient data to be able to look at the data by each of these regions. But if you imagine going forward a month or two and we've got adequate sample size, now we can look at the data by all of these regions. And it's going to be great when we get to do that, because you're really going to have a clear sense of how your business is different for these regions. We just have to get there.
Dave, is Canada included in this, or is this just US?
No, it's just the US.
Okay.
How do they gather their audience? Do they get paid to do that, or?
Christopher, do you actually know the answer to that question?
Yeah,
I
what's
don't.
interesting is there's only like 3 companies now in the world that actually collect sample data for all the market research companies, and the big one is called Dynata. And Dynata, through acquisition consolidation, does nothing other than, think of them as like a human farmer of opinion, constantly collecting sample of people that market research companies can reach out to, and then incentivize them to take surveys. And so Tracksuit purchases from the open market sample that all the other market research companies search from. Think of them as like a giant tractor that's always dredging the beach with all the sand that allows these market research companies to come in and then pick out the seashells, right? And then these are the people we want. These are that we want to collect. And then when a client like yourself comes in and wants to find a certain kind of person to talk to, then these companies always have sample to go off and then collect. But yeah, it's sort of the industrial market research complex that all these companies come in, and then they put their unique model on top of it that then allows us to better understand what all these people are thinking about, what they have in their heads when it comes to branded choices they can make in different categories.
There you go. Any other questions? I thought there was another question. Anyone? So we'll look into how many of you want to receive logins if you want to.
It's unlimited. Anybody who wants it can have it.
Got it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we have a summary of the first quarter, less about the template, more about the data itself, which we will send out after the meeting, just so you have that ability to look at the data and see how your brand is doing relative to competitors on all of these measures.
If there's other questions, reach out, let us know. I think this is something, again, everybody will have access to it, so you can get the real-time data, but at the very least, I think on a quarterly basis, when we're sharing more in-depth media reporting, we can take a look at the past quarter's performance and pull out some of those key insights as well.
Yeah. I mean, I fully agree.
Did you guys...
We're still in the beginning of the process. So one thing that kind of surprised me that I think we are the #1 on the bang for the buck, basically the one of the question. It turns out we are not the one here, right? So it's quite quite kind of interesting to see. Yeah, we're gonna dig into further and come back to you.
Did you say this data would be available on a monthly basis? Like they do the survey on a monthly cadence, or?
Yes, that's correct. The data is done quarterly, monthly. They drop new data in every month. You know, Tim, we'll see how it goes. Do you want to really look at the data every month? You know, sometimes you've got smaller sample sizes, things bounce around a little bit. Is it safer, more logical to look at it quarterly? We will work through all of that together, but the data will be available to you on a monthly basis.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. No, I think quarterly probably makes the most sense so that you have a larger data set to look at. But
Right.
yeah, it's pretty interesting. I mean, nothing really surprised me at all on the awareness side. That's kind of exactly what I would have expected to see. But some of the advertising consumables, that was a little bit interesting. Becca and I were talking about TikTok the other day, and that was pretty high on that list. So some of that's pretty interesting as well. YouTube was way up there. So it's kind of interesting to see.
Sure.
Yeah. Particularly for
but
this
it'll be-
category where, you know, people are using YouTube as a discovery, you know, like they're looking for their first tractor. There's jobs that they have to be done. They're, you know, homesteading, whatever it is. It's like YouTube has become this wonderful search engine for hobbyists and how to, and what does it look like, and what's it like to own these things, and just the sort of voyeuristic nature of the lifestyles of other people who have these same needs and products, that YouTube has a unique stranglehold on that kind of a medium experience. So it makes sense.
And I think what'll be interesting is, especially as we, you know, kind of develop our advertising plan, you know, if we, you know, push, say, YouTube in the Northeast really hard, for example, and then we see that awareness shoot up, or the opposite, you know, whatever it is, I think that'll start being really interesting to kind of gauge how different media is working for us. And like, I'd be really curious to see the difference in, say, you know, compact construction versus the lawnmower. And, you know, if for example, I was just looking at this, you really see, you know, maybe LinkedIn jump up a lot for compact construction, you know, because maybe it's, or something weird like that. So a lot of that will be, I think, really interesting and help guide some of our planning. So
right.
Cool.
You can see how we'll be able to look at media use by these different, you know, kind of product use categories, if you will.
Yep.
Construction, you know, ranching, farming, et cetera.
Yep, for sure. Yeah.
Does
cool.
does the tool kind of provide some AI aspect on it, such as like having all this data? Hey, tell me what KIOTI nearly needs to focus on. Then just comes up.
That's exactly what this is, Ryan. It's this beta that they're just testing now, what they call the coach's notes, where you would look through the data and it'll sort of interpret the data for you and tell you what it thinks you should do about it. You know, so how can this help grow your brands? You can kind of see it provides recommendations here. You know, we recommend prioritizing efforts to grow brand awareness, learn more. And it sort of gives you a sense of how to do that. Now it's generic, and you know we'll need to figure out how to apply it to your category and your brand. But it is at least a AI generated interpretation of the results that you can use as a starting point, and how you think about the data.
And this, you know, what's really interesting to know is that the co-founder of this company is a leading voice when it comes to marketing and advertising effectiveness. And so much of the things we talked to you about in the success workshop are philosophies and understandings based on marketing science that this particular person is using to train the AI to make these recommendations. So this part of this software platform is going to get really exciting because it's actually going to start to provide you unique diagnosis and what to do next, and help you better, you know, self-assess, you know, the situation that you're in and what you should be focusing on. And that's only going to get smarter and smarter and smarter. And so there is a event horizon here too, where the recommendations could start to get very category specific and brand specific. So that's something that's part of their product map. So yeah, watch this space and coaches notes, because you as a marketing team and as an organization can use this as a sparring partner to figure out then what to do next to help you close your gaps, along obviously with our counsel too. But you know, it's a cognitive assistant added to your marketing team.
Yeah. I mean, there's still in the beginning. I'm sure from now on, you guys, our agencies, that depending on how you goes, our numbers go up for sure. Hopefully. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we'll get the report, the recording, and see who all wants login access. We'll get all that over to you now. And again, if anybody has any follow-up questions, just reach out. We'll keep talking.
Okay.
All right.
All right, good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.
you. It's
Bye.
great to see you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Good job.
Talk more soon.
Bye-bye.